The NWO got so massive that then you guys did the NWO only pay-per-view, sold out. You've described it as a total show.
Worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
Uh, it was in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and I don't know if you remember this, but you had a great James Bond analogy about that was good.
We should have went to anywhere. Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, Hong Kong. Nah, man. Cedar Rapids. Eric always came across like a weatherman. Like he was a handsome guy. It was his idea. So like he gets that tone of genius for coming up with the NWO and putting all the pieces together. And I remember when the last days of WCW and Vince was getting ready to buy WCW, and Eric was just it's total defeat. And I looked at him. I said, "One of these days, you're going to go to work for them, and you're going to see the machine that they have, and you're going to really be proud that you were even able to compete against the WWE, because you would go to the WWE production, and there were guys in the production office that slept on cots, that didn't leave, that put packages together 24/7. I mean, they had a crew like no other crew, because everybody was passionate about it. Was a wrestling company, and Turner was CNN with a bunch of bullshit. That's what they were, and but you always think that Eric's kind of a cool guy, but he's not. He's a biker guy. His idea of this will be really great TV is we're going to have the Miss NWO contest during our pay-per-view, and they're going to be the ugliest women we can find. And I'm thinking, like, what? And this is back when there was a group of women that worked for a particular company. You'll either know the reference or you won't, but the company was called Vivid. They used to make DVDs. They had people like Savannah, Rachel Darrian, and the guys were friends with all the Vivid girls. And I'm thinking, what a perfect time to have like the top 5 Vivid girls be the NWO girls. Like the crossover is great. It's, adult film and wrestling. No, fat girls. Or fat girls. So, yeah. Our pay-per-view, and we lose every match.
I want to ask you about one of the most famous incidents in WCW, the finger poke of doom. Hogan's just said he was going to run for president. Then you end the streak of Goldberg, and now we're in the Georgia Dome for the finger poke of doom. How does it come about? And at the time, did you think it's a good angle? It's going to go somewhere?
No.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. See you next week. No. Well, we talked about this yesterday. It's like so many people have this, and because Bill was one of them, conspiracy theory, that I was booking when I beat him. So I basically booked myself to end Bill Goldberg's streak. And the truth of the story is we went up to the WWE territory. And most TVs we'd go to Chicago, but we never went Philly, Baltimore, Meadowlands, Uniondale. So we went up there with Goldberg, and he got booed out of the building to the point where they couldn't even chant Goldberg over the PA loud enough to cover the boos. Because what had happened was he wasn't putting in time. He was the main event on the house shows, and he was basically entrance, 25 seconds, spear jackhammer, thanks for coming. And Scott and I at that time were working with the Steiners, and we were going like 30 minutes every night before that for the tag belts, just so they got a main event that was worthy of what they paid for the and they that way there they left happy because they got to see the Goldberg experience, all 1 minute of it. So after that trip, Bischoff started to come to the conclusion, along with Hulk and a lot of other people, like this, until we need to get it off him, and he needs to like get a little bit more seasoned. And the thing is people, they actually think that he was 173-0, and it was like he wrestled on TV the first night against Hugh Morris, and it was like, and he was 1-0, and then like 2 weeks later he was like 31-0. And there wasn't even that many. It was this bullshit number, and for some reason Bill bought into it. So that was fine with me. I didn't care. It didn't change my pay structure. So they decided that they're going to beat Goldberg, and I was a babyface at the time. And if anybody's ever seen that match, it's 50-50 as far as who's over and who's not over in Washington. And when I beat him, that place popped. And then they were kind of like, oh, I don't know if we wanted him to lose or not. There's a streak. My question is always this. If you're Kevin Nash, and even though the streak's bullshit, it's still the streak, and it's still the most talked about thing on our program. And I'm the guy that's the one. So the 173-1, and I'm the one. Do you think if I'm in charge of writing TV, I sit down and I go, now that I've worked my master plan out, I've got the belt. What if I was to wrestle Hogan 6 days from now? He pokes me in the chest, I lay down, and he takes the belt. I think that's brilliant. I was just getting a paycheck. They told me what they wanted me to do. My part of the finger poke of doom was they came up with the brilliant idea that, brother, we're going to go out there, brother, and give them like 4 minutes, and then we'll like you'll slip me over, and we'll be in on it. And I said, that doesn't make sense. If we're in on it, why would, like, if it was a real fight, like, I wouldn't let you punch me with your bare fist for 4 minutes and then go, ready to do that thing now where I lay down? I said, you would do it right, like, it would be almost comical how, and I just told him, I said, like, if you just poked me and I fell, and they all just kind of thought about it, they went, well, all right, we'll do that. I said, I don't have a problem with it. I'll do it. Once again, I'm still getting the same paycheck in 2 weeks, so.
Later that year, Bischoff gets sent home, and they bring in Vince Russo. When Russo came in, what were you thinking? Were you thinking he can help, or were you thinking, did you kind of see the writing on the wall?
Hogan had creative control. It wasn't a fixable situation. I mean, at that point, the inmates, I mean, it was one flew over the cuckoo nest time 10, and Hogan was Jack Nicholson. It was just, want to watch the World Series.
Well, you were there in 2000, Russo's booking himself to win the world title, or Jeff Jarrett's laying down for Hogan. When you're seeing all this stuff, are you thinking, we're
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I just didn't, I mean, Bischoff was trying to get a hold of WCW, and he had it sold to a group, and these guys had mega money, and we were going to move WCW. Eric was going to move WCW to Vegas, and we were going to have the WCW logo on top of the Sphere in Vegas, and we were going to use the MGM as our home until they built a 10,000 seat arena that would just be the WCW arena, and we basically would just kind of be like a Britney Spears type show that you would see when you came out there, and we'd also do a TV every Monday. And when the deal was, it was Fuchsia Media was I think the company that we were doing the deal with. And because we weren't going to be on the road, we needed a much smaller crew. So it was just going to be a handpicked group of guys that were going to be paid very well to basically, we'd all have to probably move to Vegas or move to LA, and then we could commute by, take a private back and forth. But like Bischoff had it worked out, but it doesn't matter if you have a wrestling product, you have to have some place to put it. And Turner Broadcasting at the last minute said, we won't broadcast it. Like, we're not going to give you broadcast rights. So that deal died, and then they sold the company and the library to Vince for, I've heard $2 million.
Did they try and get you for the last Nitro?
Yeah. They called me and they said, wanted to tell you that Vince is going to buy WCW, and they're going to make the announcement on Monday night in Panama City. And I said, it's going to be, the last match will be Sting versus Flair. And I said, so when do they take over the company? He said, well, Saturday the paperwork will be done. I said, so Monday it will be Vince's company. And they were like, yeah. I said, F you, I ain't coming. Like, I'm not going to show up. Like, I don't work for Vince. So I immediately called my agent and I said, I have 17 months left on my contract. And he said, don't worry, you're going to get every dime of it. It's guaranteed money. I said, so I can just sit at home? He said, you can just sit at home. I said, I'll sit at home. So that's what I did.
You get sent home in September of 99. You come back to work with Vince Russo. Just seeing what the temperature of the room is for Vince. Are we Vince Russo fans? No. Okay. You and Russo are, it's you two together. You're going to reboot WCW. And I feel that from that era, the thing that's the most controversial and that people still talk negatively about is David Arquette becoming the WCW champion. And we always hear about Tony Schiavone coming up with the idea, Russo saying he thought it was good. We never really hear as much what you thought. What did you think at the time and think now about it?
Keep in mind, I was no longer the president of the company. When I came back, I was hired as an independent. I was a consultant. Okay, I wasn't the booker. I wasn't the head of creative. I was there to oversee creative and give my opinion based on what I saw. If Brad Siegel at the time wanted to hear those thoughts, I worked with Russo to try to help him craft what I thought was better TV, but I wasn't there every day. That wasn't my job. So there were two things. That was one thing that was happening. My role had changed significantly. I was a consultant. I wasn't the boss. The other thing that had happened is that prior to my being sent home in 99, in the early summer of 1999, I got a phone call from Warner Brothers Television or Warner Brothers Feature Films. A director by the name of Leonardo di Bonaventura, who went on to become a very, very, very successful director at Warner Feature Films, had an idea to do a movie with wrestlers. They contacted me. This is probably in June or July before I got sent home in September, maybe even before that. Might have been the spring. And we sat down and we worked together on a basic outline of a movie script that would involve a lot of WCW wrestlers. Because at that time, that was the time of the merger, the AOL Time Warner merger. So the marching orders that I had back when I was still president is Time Warner is taking this company over. We have to create synergistic opportunities with our parent company. So basically I was told if you could find a way to work with Time Warner, make it happen. And now I get a phone call from Leonardo di Bonaventura. He's going, hey, Eric, I got this idea. Would you come out to L.A.? And I'm excited about it anyway. Even if it wasn't the fact that we were being taken over by Time Warner, I was like, fuck, this is kind of a cool idea. Let's do it. So we started working on that movie. Then in September, I got sent home. By the time I came back in February or March, whenever it was, the movie had been developed. They had a script. They're getting ready to go. And David Arquette was a part of that feature. He was a big star in that feature film. So now I'm thinking, okay, how do we maximize our synergy with Time Warner and Warner Feature Films? How do we maximize it? How do we make wrestling more valuable to our parent company? Well, you do that by showcasing how creatively you could use WCW to help support a feature film. It actually makes sense if you think about it outside of the emotional, it was David Arquette is the world champion. I mean, if you look at it from that perspective, there's no way that makes sense. But if you look at it from a purely business perspective, it actually does make a little bit of sense. I'm not justifying it, but at the time it made sense. So when the idea came to me, I went, yeah. I wasn't like, yeah, that's a great idea. Oh, David Arquette, he's the best. Oh, people love it. I was like, we are being taken over by a company called Time Warner, which owns Warner Feature Films, and they want to do a wrestling movie, and David Arquette's a movie star. And at the time, he was a pretty big movie star. And at the time, he was married to the #1 television star on television at the time. I'm thinking, what could go wrong? It did. He chuckled. He goes, yeah.
So when it happens, in terms of your reaction, were you surprised that people were outraged by it? Were you surprised that people sort of thought it the bed? Like, what was your view afterwards?
I don't think it affected me much. I mean, I the bed other times before that. It's not that I was used to it, but I say this now, and I've said this somewhat frequently, that anybody that's never been in a position and made a really, really bad creative idea has never been in the business of creative ideas. You're never going to hit 100%. If you're lucky, 50% of your ideas are going to be winners and 50% are going to be losers. If you're lucky. If you suck at it, the odds are going to be worse. So I'd done things before that I thought were going to be pretty good that weren't. So to me, it was just like, we'll ride it out. In another month or 2 or 3 months, people will forget about it. It won't be that big a deal, and we'll come up with something else, because that's what you have to do when you're producing 52 weeks of television a year. Not every idea. I mean, anybody remember Triple H a corpse? I mean, he screwed a dead body in a casket on national television. How good of an idea was that, right? But you look at all the other great ideas that came afterwards. Not every idea you come up with is going to be a winner. So the answer to your question is, yeah, the audience reacted negatively, but by that stage of my career, it didn't matter that much to me.
So you go through the whole Monday Night Wars, you've been in charge, you've been an employee, you've done all these different things. The last Nitro happens. you were going to buy the company, it falls through. Do you remember where you were when the last Nitro was on? And do you
No.
remember what did you when you eventually saw Vince do the simulcast? What did you think?
I didn't see it till years afterwards. I didn't watch it live as it happened.
Was that a concerted choice to just avoid it?
Emotionally, I put wrestling in my rearview mirror. It was like, yeah, I think I did this thing called professional wrestling a long time ago, but I'd moved on in my mind, and I didn't want to give it any space in my head. So I just wasn't paying attention. I literally walked away from it, like I guess you would a relationship. You know, it's not like if you break up with somebody that's important in your life and you're going to hang out with them on weekends. I just, once I walk away from something, I tend to really walk away hard. I don't revisit. I don't think about it. I just walk away, and I had walked away from it. So I didn't see that episode till probably 5 years after it happened.
And when you finally watched it, what did you feel? What did you feel when you watched it?
It probably, it's hard to describe it. I guess it stung a bit because it was still, WCW was Nitro was my baby. I mean, I conceived it in a closet and literally in a room by myself with a yellow legal pad. I didn't want any influence from anybody else. I didn't want to hear anybody else's opinion because Ted Turner put a gun to my head. Ted Turner said, Eric, go do this thing. Go compete with WWE head to head on Monday nights. My life at that point, my professional life, was up for grabs. I had a gun to my head. And I didn't want to let anybody influence whether or not I lived or died. So I'm not exaggerating when I tell you this. When I walked out of Ted's office that day, this is how we started out the show. When I walked out of Ted's office that day, there were two towers in the CNN Center. There was the North Tower where a lot of the upper executives were, and there was the South Tower where a lot of the other executives were like me. So when I left Ted's office in the North Tower, 15th floor, came down the elevator, walked out of the North Tower, there was a bridge that spanned the atrium. You could look down, and there was a shopping area there and a gift store and restaurants and bars. And I remember walking out of that meeting, and I stood on that atrium, and I looked out over the CNN Center. You could look at the CNN Center, and it was like 15 stories high, and it was all glass on the inside, and you could see everybody working. It's the CNN Center. It's kind of a big deal at the time. And I'm standing there looking at this, and I'm thinking, okay, this is my shot, or this is the end of my career. I've got to make this work. And I thought through that, and I went back to my office. I didn't tell anybody about the meeting. I had no conversations with anybody. I locked my door, and I sat down with a yellow legal pad and a pencil. And I made a list of all the things that the WWF was really good at on one side of the legal pad. And I drew a line down the middle, and I said, okay, how do I be different than that? How do I do what they're so good at, but do it differently? Because I can't beat them at what they do. There's no way I'm going to be better than them at what they're already doing, but I can be different than them. And by being different, I can hopefully be better. And that's exactly what happened. But I sat in that room by myself, and I made a list of probably 10 or 15 things. Let's see, their tape. I'm right-handed. Their tape. I'm live. They're going after their presentation was teens and preteens because that was their business model. They were selling hot dog or ice cream cones, or WWE cookies, WWE this and that, toys. It was all of their. That's why their characters were all over the top like human cartoons. They had Garbage Man, they had Crazy Dennis, they had IRS guys, they had little midgets, they had all these crazy cartoons, right? Little people. Is there anybody? Oh no, I couldn't see if there was. Never mind. Horrible. That was horrible. But they're designing their show to go after teens and preteens. I'm going to go after 18 to 49-year-old men because nobody's paying attention to them. I'll go get them. They can have the kiddies. I'm going to go after this audience. And I literally made that list, and that became the template for Nitro.
With WCW in the early 90s, you were a big part of that, obviously, but then you left to go to ECW. What do you think was the reason that WCW in the early 90s, what were the prime reasons that they weren't competing with WWF? Like, what were the reasons that they just weren't as sort of relevant at the time?
Because management had absolutely no product knowledge. They brought in a bunch of people from the outside who thought that this could be run in the manner of dollars and cents up front, and that's just not the way this business runs. It's just not. It never will be. It's always going to be about developing young talent, moving new people into the main event mix, getting those people who are in the main event mix to be accepted by the public as main eventers, and then as soon as someone's accepted as a main eventer, already have the next wave of main eventers being moved up so that you have established star A, established star B, going against new star A and new star B, while new star A and new star B are getting ready to work with newer star A and newer star B. And those newer guys are gonna work with the older guys too. And now, instead of having 2 main eventers, and 2 new main eventers, and 2 new main eventers, you have 6 main eventers. Wow, we did that on SmackDown, didn't we? This very concept. And I didn't prepare that. I just realized what I was doing. Holy shit, that's what I did on SmackDown. And now you have 6 main eventers, and guess what happens when you have 6 main eventers? You have 6 people that can now work with other people and make them main eventers as well. And that's how this business needs to operate, and always has. And unless someone comes up with something different, it's always going to be that way. So the people that were put in charge just didn't understand that, had no concept of what draws, how to get people to draw, and then once someone's drawing, how to keep them hot while making someone else hot. And by the way, if you have 2 people are hot, match them against each other. That's what the people want to see. And they didn't get it. They just didn't understand. And I can't sit here and tell you that they're stupid people or they're ignorant or whatever. They were ignorant towards the industry of sports entertainment / professional wrestling, and had no business being in this business. And so it inherently, no matter how great of a again, look at the roster that we were just talking about. Rick Rude, Steve Austin, Larry Zbyszko, Arn Anderson, Bobby Eaton, Medusa, climbing long before, and God bless Mick Foley, but long before Mick Foley thought of going on top of the cell with The Undertaker, Medusa went on top of the War Games with Sting. And here's Medusa in high heels, by the way. Think about that. Think about that. In high heels, she climbed to the top of the cage and stood there. And man, I tell you what, I admittedly, we all know what we're talking about here. I knew what was going to happen. I thought Sting was going to get his ass whipped. Because Deuce was no one to mess with, and especially back in 1992. She had just come in from Japan. She had done all this kickboxing, and she had done shoot matches with Aja Kong, and she had trained in Thailand. And Sting's like going on top of the cage to beat his chest like King Kong. And Deuce looks at me and goes, "I'm going to go up there." I was like, "What?" And she's like, "I'm going to go up there." "Why?" "I don't know. I'll figure it out when I get up there." And I'm like, no. She's up there. And I love telling Rick Rude stories because Rick Rude was one of the coolest dudes I ever met in my entire life. He was just so cool. I mean, Rick Rude used to talk like this. He'd always shake his head when he's talking to you, and everything that came out of his mouth sounded like he was just a really tough guy saying something really cool. Because, by the way, he was a really tough guy saying something really cool. And Rude goes, "Hey, Paulie, what the is Deuce doing on top of the Hell in a Cell? Not Hell in a Cell, and on top of the War Games. I said, Rick, I don't know what she's doing on top of the War Games. And he goes, neither do I, but it's going to be interesting to watch. And of course, just being Rick Rude, he's going like this. And she's wearing this long gown, this long, beautiful, you know where this is going, right? This long gown. And I go, what are you doing? He goes, trying to see if she has any panties on. So we go from the question about WCW management to whether Medusa did or did not wear panties back in 1992, and even if she does now, which I don't know, and I don't have the balls to ask. But here's the point. 10 great talents, plus Medusa, plus a manager who kind of knew what he was doing on the outside, plus Jim Ross on commentary, plus Tony Schiavone, who everybody knocks, but he wasn't all that bad to begin with, okay? All these talents, all these people, great referees, great announcers, everybody together, and didn't know how to draw money. Why? Because they were the wrong people in management. They didn't know how to market it. They didn't know how to put people together. That War Games came together because we pushed for it to come together, because we kept saying, look at all this talent, look at all these feuds that we're doing. Why don't we all just do a War Games? And finally, we just pushed and pushed and pushed, and they didn't have a theme for that show. And Steve Chamberlain, who was a TBS executive, said, why don't we do War Games? So now they had to fill the War Games with something, which is why they kind of lucked into that match. And that was the point. Anything good that happened back then, they lucked into.
One of the things that gets brought up a lot by fans, and it's probably going to make you shake your head when I bring it up, is the finger poke of doom. And I know Goldberg was pretty annoyed that coming out of it, he didn't get the big win over the NWO. When you look back on the finger poke of doom, do you think people make too much of a big deal out of it, or what is your kind of memory of it now, 20 years later?
Well, just the fact that we're still talking about it tells me that it was effective to some degree. Nobody's talking about the drop-toed death move. I mean, it's just, the thing is, it got everybody.
Do you think, because that was the night where
They said it killed the business. They said it killed WCW. And I've said this a million times. So many people that watch wrestling live in a wrestling bubble. And what killed WCW was the fact that Turner sold to Time Warner. Time Warner sold to AOL. AOL was a .com. There was this thing in 2003 called the .com crash. AOL stock was worth nothing. Not only did they sell WCW, they sold the Atlanta Braves, the Atlanta Hawks. They sold everything that wasn't bolted down. It had nothing to do with the finger poke of doom. Everybody switched when they said ahead of time that Mick Foley was going over. Like 1 million viewers switched that didn't even see the finger poke of doom. So it's all those people that just absolutely love me and want to put some blame on me, and I got big wide shoulders and I can take it, because you know what? That finger poke of doom looks real sweet when I'm drinking coffee and looking out at the beach every morning.
But you debut on Nitro in December of 1997, and what do you remember about when you first got there, the reception from the locker room, your expectations at that point, you know, with Montreal a month before? Did you have hopes for it when you got there the first time? What was the reaction like?
Well, it's pretty easy to think about. Like, when I think about it, it's like, I thought I came in with so much momentum. Like, you know, this is how stupid WCW was. Eric Bischoff, like, man, stupidest people in the world. I'm not kidding. Like, I beat Undertaker for the world title, beat Steve Austin, like destroyed Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13. I won so many matches that year against all their top guys. And now you got me, I'm in your company working against them. Plus I knocked out Vince McMahon. Like, I came with such potential. Like, it should have been me and Hulk Hogan right away, and I think I should have beat him for the title. And they should have made me champion, and things might have like we could have wrestled 100 times after that. Me and Hulk Hogan, we could have kept wrestling each other and doing all kinds of business because it was there. And it was just such a shame that they were so stupid. Like, I know from people that worked there that have told me, like, they were in the room when Eric Bischoff would go, what are we going to do? This is like a TV room where they're mapping everything out. And there was different wrestlers in there. And they all would, the different wrestlers would come up to me and tell me later that every time my name came up, they go, what are we going to do with Bret Hart this week? And all of a sudden Hulk Hogan would go, I don't know, I wasn't there, so I don't know, but he would bury me, I guess. And they end up, it was like that, because Hogan had so much clout with Bischoff that every week they just put a line through my name and I didn't even work. I mean, there was lots of times that WCW flew me down, all the way down to wherever I would be wrestling, Nitro. And they'd fly me first class airplane ticket all the way to Atlanta or somewhere. And I'd stay in a first class hotel and I'd get a Lincoln Continental and I'd all this money that I was spending, their money on getting to the show and getting to the building. Then I'd get to the building and wait around till 5 or 6 o'clock at night, and then they'd tell me that I was off. And then I'd just go home the next day. And I remember going, at least it's a day off on my counts as a day off. But I remember thinking, kind of an idiot would pay me all the money that they're paying me to bring me all the way in and leave me off the card when I had so much momentum. Like, at that time, Steve Austin was going through the roof in WWF. And it's like, geez, I'm the guy that beat him. Remember me? Like, I'm the guy that beat Steve Austin, their top guy right now. Why are you not doing anything with me? And, that was the insanity of WCW, is that Eric Bischoff actually didn't have any genitals. And Hulk Hogan was the guy Hulk Hogan was calling all the shots. And he for whatever reason, just made sure that they didn't do anything with me. And I've got that from 2 or 3 different wrestlers that were in the room that always said they just put a line through your name every night. Like, and just Hulk Hogan would go, I don't want anything with that guy, or I'm not working with him, or I don't know what his problem was, but it's too bad.
I do want to ask you, because you got there to WCW, you get a win over Ric Flair in pay-per-view, they have you in there with Kurt Hennig and Bryan Adams, and then they do this big angle in April of '98 where it's Randy Savage defending the world title against Hulk Hogan. You turn heel on Randy Savage, and you join the NWO with Hogan. I know the answer to this, but I'm just asking it anyway. Were you pushing to turn heel and join the NWO? Was that something you were interested in? What did you think when they said you're going to join the NWO and partner up with Hogan?
Well, the truth is, I don't remember very little of this stuff, because it was always like, I just remember going like, how stupid can you get? Like, but me and Macho Man would have loved to have worked together, and but to be honest, there was never nothing made any sense, and I just gave up after a while. It's like, I've heard Eric Bischoff say that I came in, I wasn't the same guy that I was when I left WWE or WWF. But the truth was, I was the same guy. I wanted to kick the doors down and just, show WWE what they lost in me. Because if you look at my career, 1997, I had my greatest matches. Greatest one after another. Like, if you remember the Patriot and and he was a limited wrestler. He wasn't really that great. But I gave him a great match and did all kinds of, I loved the matches I had with him. I had so many matches that year with different guys that were not easy to, like Vader. I remember having I'm the heel and he's the baby face. Figure that out. I was like, but, and I don't know how many concussions I got in that match, but I just always felt that there was such an opportunity there. When I left the WCW, I had so much momentum, and Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan just poured water or like cold, like just put out that fire as quick as they could put it out when that's what they needed. They needed me, and they needed some of my storylines and my psychology, and to have some great matches. I remember practically begging Eric Bischoff. I'd show up and I'd just say, why don't you put me with Rey Mysterio, put me with this guy, throw me with that guy, how about this guy? And he would always, Eric Bischoff would always go, we can't do that right now, or he's working with this guy, or he had a million excuses. And I never worked with anybody. And I don't remember, if you ask me, like, I really don't remember much of WCW, like what I did, because it was nothing to remember. I was always just so disappointed with everything I ever did. The only couple of matches that I remember in WCW were
Well,
I do remember the Benoit match that I had in memory of Owen, and that was...
I did want to ask you because, once Bischoff got sent home in September of '99, they went in a different direction and they brought in Vince Russo. And they had a big show in November '99 in Toronto. It's the world title tournament. So you beat Saturn, Kidman, you beat Chris Benoit in the final. You became WCW world champion. Was that a good memory? Was there hope at that point that maybe they're going to do something with me? I'm guessing by your face there's not, but I'm just asking anyway.
I didn't. But there was a point in time. I'll say this: when I knocked out Vince McMahon, I realized that because it was kind of like I was saying, I'll never take wrestling over like too serious ever again. From now on, I get a guaranteed contract. I get my money every week. I don't give a what happens. Like, I don't really, although I did care because I know I had a lot of fans that cared, and it's like I just decided like it's out of my hands, but I'm going to make my money. I want to make all the money that I've signed on for, and if I can lash out at WWE and help WCW get to the top, I'll do everything I can to help them, and that's kind of what my attitude was. But they were so stupid, really. God, I don't know how long I could talk about WCW.